In this episode of the Veteran Business Community Podcast, I'm talking with Harry Moffit. Now, Harry, 11 operational tours with the SAS, let alone everything else he's done. Multi-award-winning author with a couple of books under his belt. Lead singer of a punk rock band, but generally down-to-earth, practical Aussie guy. So let's have a chat with Harry and unpack his new book, The Fourth Pillar. Stay tuned. G'day, everybody. Pete Liston here. Welcome to the Military Mindset for Business podcast, the podcast for the veteran business community. Now, today I've got Harry Moffit with me. G'day, Harry.
G'day, Pete. How are you?
Mate, I'm doing very well. Beautiful day here in Terrigal on the central coast of New South Wales. But, mate, I was laughing a little bit in the preamble with you. Like, in the world of veteran celebrities, I'm definitely E-, but you're a solid C+, mate, in terms of what you've done and things you've been. I'd just like to kick this thing off, mate. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Williamstown here in lovely Melbourne. I can see it from here, actually. And back in when things were in black and white last century.
Yeah, mate. They went back when Australia was a little bit of a different place. But what was life growing up like in Williamstown?
Well, I come from humble beginnings, mate. My father was a sailor at the Williamstown docks there in across the bay. My mum was a nurse, and they both worked second jobs at that stage, and did for most of my upbringing, my brother's upbringing. So pretty humble beginnings. We used to share a bath, and Nana used to sleep in the laundry when she visited in our army house or navy house. And from there, mate, just travelled around Australia as following my father's postings. So yeah, humble upbringing, which I really love. I think it's positioned me really well.
Mate, just a classy Aussie upbringing. What was it apart from the, well, there's a family history of service here. I think I read your mum was a nurse, dad was a sailor. Was it always, was it a pathway into the military just as a sort of given, or is that just natural?
I always had a sense of service. My parents brought me up to believe a humanistic kind of ideal. We're always involved in charity and working in the local community, and it's something I've really prided myself on and my kids on as well. My kids are the same. So, I would characterise it as a life of service and inspiration from my parents as a life of service, and very, very happy with that.
So you joined the army as a young fella straight out of school, was it?
Yeah, finished year 12 and joined, I think, 2 or 3 months later in February, March.
Straight into it. Was it always infantry? Was it always going to be infantry?
Well, no, actually, I went in for infantry and ended up in SIG Corps. We did the testing back in those days, halfway through Kapuka, and then they told you where you were going. I gave you the offer once you were there, and I was given 2 offers, one of which was SIG Corps, and I didn't mind. That didn't worry me. My pathway was to SAS, and you can take any pathway you like to SAS. There's no limitation. It probably held me back a little initially, just in terms of the infantry training, but it also helped me heaps because the regiment is a large part of the regiment is communications, and I was already all over it, Morse code and the other parts.
So in terms of tempo, you almost nailed it in terms of your timing, being in the military, with everything happening in the world. I think, was it 11 trips, 12 trips, something like that?
Yeah, when I first joined, I did selection in 1990, and the first 10 years were pretty slow operationally, but we had counter-terrorist role, and we're the only one doing it. So we were very busy in training and off overseas, etc. So, but yeah, the period you're talking about, September 11, and I was actually on a sabbatical in the UK and got a call to come back because we're going, and I got back in September, and around October, and we were off by the end of the year to Afghanistan, and from there it was just the revolving door of deployments for us in particular.
Yeah. So, how many years did you serve in the army for?
So I did 30, discharged in 2019, and 25 plus of those were in Perth.
Right. So as a as a pogue crap hat, as my mates from 3RA used to call me,
Don't
as the
say that.
as a loggy officer in the mess. I was truly blessed to have my military career. I always felt though, from my perspective, I was a spectator. But mate, you're tip of the sword, and like what an amazing career. And I guess what I would like to share is you've got lots of great pods out there where you tell a lot of your story, and now your story is more than just what we'll go through today. But I want to focus today on particularly your transition, and how you got the book, and we'll have a plug, and we'll go through the book. But mate, one of the things that really drove in my consciousness of the book is role models and strong role models from your family. Um, Tell us a little bit what that was like and how that really built your character from day one.
Yeah, well, when I grew up, it was a different world. My father was very sports oriented, and I really was raised by women. So they're two important points. My father was away at sea for most of my life up to the age of 10 during the Vietnam War and the Vung Tau Ferry and the various other Navy. He
Yep.
was a clearance diver, or pre-clearance diving days those days, boats, a ship's diver as they were called. And so through my father, I spent a lot of time around football clubs, at the Navy, at the bar, in the saunas and change rooms with men who were good, hardworking men, rough and ready to go, but good values and very centred. And through mum, particularly through nursing, friends and our family, my mum's sisters, my aunties, I grew up with a good sense of and good respect for women. So again, really well planted in the community and service. So I feel like that gave me a really strong set of role models and people around me to keep me in line, but also to aspire to. And I've got, as I say in the book, it's just not my old man, but you spend the first half of your life trying to be everything your old man wasn't, and the second half of your life trying to be half the man he is. And I think that's true too of your mother and the community that you have around you, if you're lucky enough. So I feel very privileged that I had that upbringing, because I work now as a psychologist with people who potentially didn't have that, and it kind of, I think it can set you back if you don't have a great start.
Mate, so was it 11 or 12 formal deployments, Stefan? Or through
11
the
formal deployments. Yeah, but the funny thing about deployments is everyone focuses on the deployments, but you come back, you're back for a couple of weeks, and then you're off on a exercise or a training team or a concentration somewhere in the world, or another mission of some description elsewhere. The deployments are, I always say, half the story for us out of Perth. We really do earn our money in that regard,
Yeah. Well, mate,
and the
one of the things,
families do too.
yeah, 100%. One of the things I want to talk to a little bit later on is the evolution away from I don't know if you ever stopped being a soldier, but how we switch focus into being the next person in your life, and the human revolution. If I can just take one moment in particular, and that was when you were wounded in Afghan. Like, you've been in a lot of trips, SAS. This is what you guys do. How did that particular moment either shape, or how was it different? Like me personally here, versus your other experiences.
Yeah, profoundly, and that's probably not too hard to imagine. I spent, yeah, I was superficially wounded. Really, Sean McCarthy was killed. We hit an IED, an improvised explosive device. It was a Russian anti-tank mine, in all likelihood, or, and remote detonated in all likelihood. And the interpreter who was with us in the car lost both his legs. So just to put that in perspective, and I was relatively unscathed, as was the other person in the car. But I contracted a septicemia, or a golden staph type. They couldn't really put their finger on what the infection was. It was pretty brutal. They were going to remove my leg at one stage. So I was in bed for weeks on a PICC line, straight into the top of my heart, and on heavy antibiotics. And during that time, I really had some deep conversations with myself about what's next. What happens if they do remove my leg? It's all over. What do I do? I'm a gunslinger. Who's going to hire me? And I'd already started studying, but this gave me so much more purpose to get the study done. I realized just how fleeting a career can be, and in a moment it can be over. And so, Peter, it was a galvanizing period for me. And that was when I decided to really pull all the stops out and go for qualifying as a psychologist. In the same time, I set up a program called the Wanderers Education Program, which is internal to SASR. And what it does is it allows operators from the time they join us, essentially, or very early on, to pursue an education or professional development line, whether that be small business, a carpenter, whatever you want, or a tertiary education for free, as long as you keep passing. Because I don't believe the family should have to sacrifice the money for, and that really was the start of my, as I sent an email earlier in the week to you, that really was the start of my philosophy that we need to start preparing people from the moment they leave us, the moment they join us,
yeah,
for separation. It's just that important.
Mate, one of my good mates, a lad called Chris Lawrence, played for the West Tigers. I'm a Balmain Tigers tragic
Balmain man, yeah.
Yeah, so he does a lot of this stuff with elite sports and the transition, and because Chris started playing footy when he was 17, still in high school when he joined the Tigers. Now, and a lot of your work has been around, what you call them, artists, athletes, operators, and analysts. Is that right? The four?
That's right. Yeah, analysts to represent the same high-level corporate teams.
Yeah. Now, I've got a question for you because, mate, you are not in the presence of an intellectual giant at all here, and I am remarkably average. So when you look at the bell curve, right, and you're looking at this high performance philosophy being right at the tip of the bell curve, one of the things I've always thought that performance, like money, fitness, health, we're always on a spectrum. We're always looking to someone else who's probably doing it better. Or for you though, who have been in that high performance space, do you feel that you are present as a high performer, or do you still have your own doubts about where you could be, like the rest of us?
Yeah, everyone suffers self-doubt, and you should. It's good. It keeps you honest. It's when it's persistent ruminations and spiraling, and that's a whole other episode that it's of concern. But most people manage their negative self-talk and self-doubt and the imposter syndrome. Look, yep. I've got a slightly different take on this. I don't think people are necessarily high performance people. I think everyone has potential. Everybody has a similar amount of potential, and others, depending on the field and where you are, some are going to be predisposed to kick a ball better. Others will be predisposed to do mathematics better, and others, like you, Peter, are more predisposed to be a social creature doing a podcast. Not everyone has what it takes to do that. So what I think about high performance is, I think high performance is a demand. It's not a criteria. It's not a set of skills or abilities. It's an environment that demands high performance. So you can drive a car, I can drive a car, but we probably aren't going to be near the level of McLaren and Williams. You and I can both play football or rugby or whatever you want to, whatever. But when we don't have what it takes, all of what it takes, we're not predisposed biologically, and also and a set of circumstances. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think looking at it from the lens of high-performing people is potentially misleading. I think the environment that you aim to be in is a high-performance environment, and if you can bring everything to bear, your luck, biology, circumstances of life to bear, then you have a shot at realizing working in a high-performance environment. And if you can make it, that's great. And yeah, the last little thing I'd say about that is, so much of it, and I make the point probably too much in the book, is luck. We just don't tip enough of our hat to luck. There was so much luck in me being in the SAS for so long. There were much better soldiers, performers, if you will, than me. But luck plays a huge part in it.
I think also just the luck that we're Australian to start with, and we've got this, the upbringing that we have, the education, the health, the options. You know, that's
It's huge, mate.
I didn't do anything to deserve to be born here, but the blessings that I have just from living on this dirt, you know, is unbelievable. Um,
Yep.
Mate, I'm just going to do a quick segue. I just turned 50, and I didn't think I
Congratulate.
needed.
Well, welcome to the club, mate.
Thank mate. I'm the steak's half done. Flip it over. Hopefully, I'll get another half out of it. But one of the, I didn't think that I needed anything more than Alice in Chains, Faith No More, and Jane's Addiction in my music repertoire until I found external. Mate, when did the guitar stuff? I got an old, it's a Gem 555 sitting over here. It's not a 777.
See?
So,
Yep.
but mate, where did guitar start and music for you?
A motorbike accident. I had a motorbike accident with a good mate of mine, Andy Constantinides, who unfortunately died in the Black Hawk disaster in '96. We were coming back from the pub, and we really, honestly only had a beer, and we came back and got T-boned, and I came off very badly. I was in bed, and as a joke, the boys bought me a guitar, but it wasn't a joke. And the externals were born in around 1991 in Perth, and we're still playing today. We've got some gigs coming up on the north coast of New South Wales and a couple over the summer in Melbourne and Sydney. So it's been a tonic, mate. It's my favourite team, the externals.
I love it. Look, a funny little analogy, right? Because okay, let's just cut to the book, right? The fourth pillar, which is you know, what I really want to not talk to you entirely on. You know, I want to talk about the journey into self-employment. You're being the master of your own career moving forward. But one of the things that I got out of the fourth pillar was a level of pragmatism about your own performance and success. You know, like I'll get you. Can you define Stotan for people that don't understand that is? And we'll tie a few threads here.
Yeah, sure. It's a good place to start, actually. Stotan is a portmanteau or a blended word taken from the Stoics and the Spartans. So Stow from Stoics and Tan from Spartans. And it's the philosophy of a guy by the name of Percy Cerutty. Talk about get shit done, entrepreneurialism. This guy is, and disruptive. This guy's the flag bearer of last century for mine. And he had a philosophy called Stotan because whilst he embraced the Stoic virtues of moderation, temperance, courage, and those types of things, he also he found shortcomings in the Stoic philosophy. And by the way, the Stoic philosophy is a lot more than just those virtues of character mainly. But it wasn't satisfying enough for him in terms of the physical element, because the guy coached arguably the greatest coach of all time, athletics coach of all time. It's almost unarguable. And he found that the Stoic philosophy didn't have a physical or an embodied philosophy, if you will. It didn't have a physical element or a performance element to it. And that was what he was all about. So human performance was his. So he introduced the Spartan training and theories around their training. For example, the agoge, which the ancient agoges are these old militaries or schoolhouses where they trained for war, but they also trained in philosophy and history and geography, and they carried out dance and tradition and myth and these types of things. It was comprehensive, unlike our universities today, who I think have lost their way. They are so focused on producing role and job ready resources, human resources, they've forgotten about the human. And I actually think university these days, from my personal experience, dehumanizes people, or can tend to unwittingly, perhaps, in the search for role job ready human resources. So that's where Stotan comes from, and I hope that explains the underlying philosophy or premise. And he ran the world's first institute of sport just down the peninsula here in Victoria, by himself in a tin shack. And at one stage, he owned every world record and world champion in middle distance running, from the Olympics to Europe. A remarkable story. A good friend of mine, Andrew Gunn's, bringing out a book shortly on Percy Cerutty that I'm excited for the release.
Hey, just when you were talking about Percy, it reminds me of a beautiful mate I've got by the name of Johnny Lewis. Now, Johnny was Costa Zoo and Jeff Fennick, and he coached 6 world
Yep.
champions. But the one thing that I have the absolute, pleasure. I've never boxed, never fought, but I trained with John just in his little club, and just when you're punching gloves, and I think, man, look, think of the people who've stood where I've stood, punching
Yeah.
gloves. But the thing with Johnny though is he is the most beautiful, soft creature, and the way that he loves people, obviously
Yep.
high performance. He picked the eyes out of people, and he would just take people. 6 world champions. But something that is fundamental about the way Johnny does business is he is fundamentally just a beautiful, good person, and just literally cares for people. But mate, tell us, what are the 4 pillars?
So the four pillars, I'll start with the 3 pillars. Every high performance, so-called high performance program on the planet, in the book I challenge the whole high performance metaphor, and prefer to call it human performance. But every high performance program on the planet revolves, either they know this or they don't, around the 3 pillars of the physical, psychological, and social. It's very
Yep.
reductionist, but it necessarily so, because it works with large numbers of people and the tech, human interface, etc. And it was Percy's belief, and I believe also the ancient Greeks and ancient philosophers' position, that philosophy plays a critical role in helping the athlete not only navigate high performance programs and environments, but to synthesize everything into their lives. And philosophy plays, I believe, it's remiss if we don't bring it back to help our athletes. And let me give you 2 examples of why that's important. The first one is their transition. We've already touched on. They are members of the world. They're not members of a footy club or members of the military. We're members of the world, and there's great purpose. And as Percy might say, we need to prepare them to go back or on to their great citizenry, and to be community members, which is the ultimate purpose, I believe. I don't believe veterans, for example, or sports people lose their purpose or their tribe or their identity at all. They're all of those things and more. But we eventually, inevitably, all have to go back to rejoin the village, as I say. The second part is that this is something unique to Percy. This is something not unique to Percy, but it's to develop a training intelligence. And what do I mean by that? We don't want to just tell athletes, artists, analysts, and operators what they should do. That's not a coach's role. A coach's role, or an instructor's role, or Johnny Lewis's role, a human's role, is to develop humans as flourishing organisms, the whole thing. And I think philosophy teaches us how to do this. And this is what Percy would call a training intelligence, to be able to train for themselves, think for themselves, which is a pure philosophical tenet. The ancient Romans called it rational preparation, because they weren't just creating war fighters. The language I hear around special operations, human optimization, and human warfighting platforms, it's just bullshit, if you don't mind the swear word, mate, because humans can't be optimized any more than we can optimize a tree. The programs can be, and we shouldn't be thinking of them in that such nearsighted way as just platforms. So that's the second thing. Philosophy can help us. The trainings, the practices of philosophy, and reading philosophy and understanding our own philosopher, the philosopher inside, can help us both in our own lives, training, building this developmental intelligence, and also help us to develop others, to become whole humans, rather than just focusing on the parts of performance or platforms.
As a father of 2 young boys, I got a 7 and a 9-year-old. I feel something that's really challenging, and you talk about a bit in your book. Number one, the complexity of the oak tree versus the McLaren or Ferrari Ford. These machines, we think they're top notch, but ultimately the complexity of just one tree is infinitely more complex than anything we can build. I'm fascinated with the connection of nature and the way that we maintain our level of humanity outside of digitization. And I think that's one of the things with Percy and his place out there on the dunes, is that raw connection to nature. Where do you see this human, if we're going to be revitalizing and creating, the human revolution, where is the digital world in this? Is it a constraint? Is it an opportunity? Is it the big elephant in the room? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think the problem with technology is it's become our master, and we're the servant. I can name gazillions of examples of that. It's particularly in the corporate world, the technology has become the master. And I resist anyway, however futile that might seem, and would like to keep technology as the servant. And if that's, we are the master of it, and that's why I've chosen, again, so-called high performance environments to base the book, because in those environments the humans still are the masters and technology is the servant. If you think about an athlete, we don't go along to watch machines when I go along to watch the football. When I think about military special operations in combat, you employ machinery, but it's not coming to help you of its own volition in the times you need it. So I think we can learn from these environments. Nature, it's a huge part. Henry Thoreau writes about it beautifully in Walden, about how reconnecting with nature reminds us that we are of nature. Yet at times I feel like we've been duped into thinking we are of technology. You have people saying your brain's like a computer. That's bullshit. Your heart's like a pump. They're helpful metaphors, but it's not right. It's just so much more complex. And the International Space Station meets nowhere near the complexity of a single human cell. This is the contrast so profound. I'll give you just one quick example. Sitting around technology, this is my understanding. I'm not a scientist. My understanding is our focal length and our saccades of our eye, which is critically important to brain health, and can be connected, diminishes by more than 50%. Your focal length should be changing by the second, same as your saccades should be occurring, a few times every second. When we sit in front of computers, it dulls, and so do large parts of our brain. As soon as you go into the beautiful complexity of nature, it ramps up again, because if you think of staring at a tree, your focal length's going crazy and it's kind of complex. And somehow, through the likes of complexity scientists, they call them, I don't believe it for a minute, I don't, that complexity is this bad thing, but that's man-made to complexity, that we've built around us, and that's full of toxic power and money, and whereas pure nature, the complexity is beautiful, and if you go and walk in nature or drive your car, you feel its relaxing essence. It's just a no-brainer. So we've made this world where we believe that complexity is a bad thing, and I don't know whether that we've forgotten that it's a wonderful thing, and that nature can calm us.
It's a classic can't see the forest for the trees kind of simplicity of it. And like it is like, me and my wife always joke, like we're always like, we're water views kind of people. Like we'd love to, to wherever we are, if we've got to pay an extra $30 to be in the hotel room in the front versus the back, I'll always pay it just to sit there and just look at the water. But I think coming back, into your book and high performance and, industrial revolution and what this modern world is, some of these things, the fundamental simplicity of humanity, the ability to walk in the bush. Where I am, I've got a flock of bellbirds that live in my backyard here, and the backyard is just never silent. There's not 3 seconds of the day that a bellbird doesn't just peep, peep, peep. And I just love it. I had a mate up here on the weekend, and we got the old bush TV out and just sat and had a few beers, around the fire for a few hours. I think it's just real connecting. Where did you see philosophy coming? Because this is the time that we used to think in these moments, when we're not distracted by digital, whatever it is, when we're walking down the beach, when we're walking, on a fire trail or through the bush, sitting looking at the fire.
Yeah, I talk about the 8 privileges in the book, and the 8 privileges, again, if you're someone looking for 10 wonderful things to do before breakfast and hack your life, go for it. I think it's a distraction. This is not the book for you if you're one of those. If you're looking for self-help and 10 easy chapters to get through, this is not it. The philosophical practices, I'm not endorsing them as much to say you should be doing them. They're things that I won't be without, but they remind us of exactly what you just said, to slow down and it's waiting, watching, listening, talking, reading, writing, thinking, walking. All of these privileges are elite practices these days. I work in the corporate world where it's a radical act to go for a run, or a walk around the block is seen as exercise, or 5,000 steps is seen. These are admirable. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to dissuade anyone from doing them, but they're not what the human condition is based on. And no matter what you do in cultural exercises, well-being programs, all this stuff, they're admirable, but they're ineffective if all you do is go back to the exact same environment. I often joke that the resilience programs, the biggest effect they have is they remove us from their toxic environments for an hour or two or whatever a week. So these 8 privileges, I'm challenging people to reintroduce them into our lives, because they're not new, they're not hacks, they're not anything. They've just disappeared from our view, just like the stars have disappeared from the city, just like the birds have disappeared from the city, just like we're slowly disappearing nature from us. And that is profoundly negligent on all of our and I know that I'm onto something, and I'm not the only one. This book is not revelatory in that regard. It's unfortunately would be radical. I hear parents saying, I want my children to spend more time in nature, and I want my children to spend more time reading and more time being patient and learning patience. And so this is at the center of this book.
But I think there's a level of pragmatism there. To be honest, I went to Thailand with 4 mates about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I didn't want to read your book over there because I was almost a little bit scared that it'd be too confronting for me when I'm just going to hang out with my mates and drink beers, for a week solid. And I didn't want to read the book because I felt like a little bit dirty, like the book
It'll
was
make you feel guilty or something.
It was going to.
There's plenty of beer in the book. Don't worry about that.
Well, this is the pragmatism between the. I thought the book was going to be a bit more of a stoic, like you've just got to grip up and you've just got to do it this way, and you've got to, there is no room for misgiving or humanity in there, like to be flawed, and you've just got to ultimately, the path to high performance is just dedication, commitment, and sacrifice. And then I was listening to some external songs, and Back on the Cans, that really resonated with me. Like, we're going to Thailand, so we're going to get, back on the cans for a week. But there's a pragmatism here between understanding the vulnerabilities that we are as a human. And it's like, it doesn't mean we don't give up or we don't strive, but there's a framework there to aspire.
Yeah. Actually, one of the really important things I hope comes through for people who read the book is that Stoicism and Socrates, Socrates seen as the primary philosopher. He's not. He's one of tens of thousands of those times, and hundreds and if not millions since. And Stoicism is not the primary philosophy. It's just one school of philosophy of dozens and hundreds and thousands, and it's survived. It's survived because important people through the Roman period in particular reinforced it and actually reduced it down from its broader, more universal appeal back in the 300 to 600 BCE. But so what's key here is I hope my book's for operators, athletes, analysts, and artists. That's who it's for, and hopefully for the coaches and the instructors and teachers around them. And anyone else, there's plenty of lessons in there, I hope, for others. But I want to introduce them to other philosophers and other philosophies. And I do it pretty at pace in the book, because I don't want to give spend a chapter outlining Hannah Arendt's philosophy, which is wonderful. Her writing I would commend to anyone who's listening. But I want to touch on her and make it known how important she is and how important she's been to my journey. And she's just one of many. To round back to the beer and having a good time, and a little bit of Epicurean philosophy, which is that one of the purposes of life is to enjoy one's life if one has given the circumstances, lucky enough to have the circumstances, and not feel guilty, as long as we don't become completely hedonistic about everything, which people who live in a life of luxury tend to do, and that's unfortunate for them because they're missing out on so much more. But we should be able to have a few beers with your mates. As a psychologist, talk about pragmatism, and I hope I don't lose. You're in danger of losing your license over these things. But I endorse a few beers on a Friday night with friends. 100%. I had a few watching my Hawks play on Friday night with my mates, where there's man hugging and laughter, and if you took a photo, that's where all the great some of the best memories are formed. Obviously, if you're drinking too much, that's an issue. But a bit like the technology, make sure it's your servant, not your master. But these, I talk in the book about looking in a restaurant at a table of a family who are all laughing, having a wine and food together and sharing. And if that's not what life's for, I don't know what it is for. So yes, there is time for being stoic, and life's tempests and adversities will continue to come before us, and we need a time where we can retreat into ourselves and galvanize or crystallize the stoic virtues. But around that, I want to make love. I want to drink a few too many beers. I want to play punk rock music. I got a short time on this earth, and I plan on continuing doing that, Pete.
Mate, I want to just have a quick chat about the change from being a soldier, someone who, particularly in your role at SAS, has been at the ultimate pinpoint of violence, inflicting violence. That's just part of the job. To a position now where we can morph into hopefully a different level of humanity. I don't know whether war will ever get rid of, but it doesn't mean we can't aspire to a world without it. What's your fundamental purpose now from having such a massive shift from being in that world through to craving and searching for a new world and helping humanity aspire to get there?
Yeah, look, I think saving humanity, or that's a large call. However,
it's a big call, yeah.
Yeah. However, I am a believer in think big, act locally, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess, again, privileged upbringing, to have two parents of such grounded service and community. I never felt like I was losing anything when I left the military. I've already mentioned this. My purpose has always been to be a good citizen. I don't think that changes for anyone, whether you've done military service, you've been a nurse, a doctor, or a police officer, or people in the corporate world. In fact, I wish they were more service-minded, people in the corporate world. I think there's not enough. They just throw a few shackles at a charity lunch, and that's pretty much all they do. But I think my purpose hasn't changed. It hasn't changed in the last 56 years. And that is that I want to be a good community member. I want to be able to help people. I want to know that people are there when I'm, in need of help as well. And I just think that's missing at the moment. The fragmentation's off the charts. Sometimes I feel like we live in the biggest insane asylum in the universe, here on Earth. It's just crazy. But I would like to see, I'd like to see everyone act with more purpose around being a good citizen and being connected to their community. And that's something my wife and I are really conscious of now. We just moved into a lovely little suburb in Melbourne, very humble, with a great community spirit, and we're going to work locally. And I think if everybody did that, we would see some change.
I'm going to pick up on a word you just used there, that's citizen. One of the things I say quite often, and particularly my kids, is, look, just be a good human first. But I think being a good citizen just levels that up a little bit, because being a good citizen, there is an obliged level of activity and contribution, not just being a good human in my world, but an overt being better in the world and making that community around you better by active measures, not just being passive about it. That's intentional, is it?
I think so. Yeah, 100%. And we need to be intentional and deliberate because we can't be trusted. We'll be lazy on ourselves if if we don't. The connecting the word citizen will mean different things to different people, but I hope that it means just a community minded and community spirited and service oriented, and the that's something that we can all aspire to do. And it's not a new concept. That it was the hot priority of the ancient Greeks and all of that they were the first to kind of realize that it wasn't great to be, or that slavery was potentially not such a good thing from coming out of Egypt and other parts of the Middle East, and were the first ones to think about this in a more pragmatic way, I think.
And like one of the things we always look back to the Greeks is what a great time to speak, what a great time to have an opinion. And then here we are, with the news of old mate Charlie Kirk getting shot last week for having an opinion. It's just it is a strange world, and like you talk about fracture and division. I'm about as centrist as it gets, to be honest. Like growing up in a normal working class community, you grew up naturally leftist, but education, health, all that kind of stuff. But then as you grow and become more successful, well, you want effort to be rewarded. So, but I think in a wealthy country like ours, I'm not trying to be over political here, just we're blessed and we've got a lot to learn and share off each other. But mate, I want to come back to laziness, right? And creating change in a person. Um, in one of the C.S. Lewis books, and I don't remember which one it is, it might be The Great Divorce or something like that. He talks about when someone gets like cancer or something, and then instantly you might switch to a life-changing, oh, I'm not going to drink no more. I'm going to do everything right. I'll pray. If only I can get through this, I'll be right. But then as soon as potentially whatever that diagnosis is clear, I think his quote is like a naughty puppy, we just go back to and roll in the puddle again, in terms of just going back to the status quo of what it was. Maybe asking for a mate, like hand up myself here. Where's this change come from to get out of that groove of the record and really make something last?
Yeah, it's the eternal question, mate. That's on every book, self-help book, including mine, because that's the shelves that it appears on. Although in Dimick's, it's on the philosophy shelf, which is nice.
Yeah.
So two things about that kind of change. One is you can't do it alone. A few people do. Some people do. They just switch, bang. But that's rare as rock and horse poo. And I think and the sustainability that is probably questionable as well. So change, you need someone, whether it's a coach or a psychologist or a friend or something, because humans can't be trusted. We can't be trusted of our own devices. And C.S. Lewis is correct. And I think that although he might disagree with my analogy, knowing his religious kind of persuasions, but it's one of the reasons religion works for so many people or facilitates these kinds of things. Every Sunday you muck up all week, and then every Sunday you go back and they evangelize the message: be good, be right, be righteous, treat people with dignity. All these messages, and you're forgiven again. And this is key. I'm not religious myself, but I respect many parts of religion and what the good parts have achieved, and that is that we need to be our own sermon, if you like. We need to at some stage take pause, and I challenge people in the book to write their own philosophy. What is meaningful to you? What are the things that you want to be? What's the kind of person you want to be renowned for? And what are the central tenets and the virtues that you want to be renowned for? And then realize, the second part is realize you won't achieve all of this. It's impossible. It's human nature not to be distracted, to be lured into other things. And when you do, to forgive yourself, but reset and go again. the people who are after really hard change, like health, habits, even learning, and this is applicable for business as well. In business, you've got to have some kind of mechanism that can reset you so that you can go on and reattack the goals that you're going after. And that I would persuade people strongly, or leave with people, is that is having a person to mentor, coach, or to remind you of that regularly. Hard change in lifestyle takes about 3 months, so the research will tell us. And you want to, if you're going to engage with someone to help you make that change, you want to do that as intensely as you possibly can in the first number of weeks. So bi-weekly meeting to keep checkpoints, and then continue. And things like Alcohol Anonymous, which is depending on what research you want to read, is actually reasonably successful, because they apply this and they build a training intelligence. Here we are again, a developmental intelligence in the person that they can eventually self-manage themselves, and many do. And as a psychologist now in and around mental health and performance and those types of things, and coaching people, that's my approach. If people can't maintain that, then that's not my problem. I can't make them be better. I can only help them provide an environment in which they're a lot more likely to improve change or whatever the goals are.
This is where some of these handy tools of the Stotan mindset, there are tools and practical applications out there. Even just moderation. Let's just keep that one as simple, whether it be food, alcohol, whatever you're doing in life, digital, just moderate, just one small step.
One small step at a time, and make small changes at a time as well. Don't try and change the whole world. Drinking's a great one, or if you're going to stop, then you need to accept everything I've just said, and if you are having problems with alcohol, I'd be getting on and seeing someone. But if you're making small changes to your business or your lifestyle, don't try and fix your sleep, nutrition, exercise, and psychological counseling all in one night. Fail, you're highly likely to. Just maybe start to address your sleep first, prioritize, and you'll find if everyone addresses their sleep, they'll probably find the others start to fall into line.
But mate, I just want to. Why did you write the book?
I love writing. I think writing is a superpower. I encourage everybody to try it. I'd go to the mountains in around Melbourne here, and just have a monastic life. I'd get up in the morning and walk for an hour out into the bush, then come back and read and write and do a lot of thinking. And I'd spend 4 or 5 days just living up in a shack in the mountains. But more directly to your question, the first book did really well. We sold 30,000 copies. So in Australia, that's apparently a bestseller. So that's encouraging. That gives you the motivation to think that, well, maybe I'm to cast aside the self-doubt. And the publisher came back and asked, if you wrote another book, what would you write it on? And this really picks up from the back end of 11 Bats and takes the reader, listener, through my life up until now, and the things I'm learning. And it's not the end state. I've reread the book, and there's things I would change, and I've changed slightly on my positions on certain things or advanced certain thinking. So it's a photo in time. Immature Harry at 56 or whatever, 57, and the next book will be an advance on that. But I've got to say, it's something I would love to do full time, but I've got a fair bit of work in front of me to prove to a publisher or someone that what can be done.
Well, mate, we didn't even get to talk about cricket. I was lucky enough to sneak over to Sri Lanka earlier this year and watch 5 days of a test match. And I can watch 5 days of a test match and feel like I'm doing something that's achieving. I feel like I love it. So
good, mate. Doing nothing is the next self-help hack. Stand by. It's coming in the shelf to the self-help shelves near you soon. We should all do a bit less more often. When you go for a walk, leave your phone and the dog and everyone else at home occasionally, and walk on your heels and walk for time, for space, not on your toes and for time. And That's one thing I'd like to leave the world with. And if you're a business leader and a veteran coming out, and you are starting your own business, you'll feel in a rush, but you've got so much more time than you think you have. And take your time, relax. Don't try and kill the world. Don't try and rescue the world in one week, and find spaces for yourself to sit and think and reflect on what you're doing, and think deeply about what you're doing, and prioritize deliberately and intentionally. I see a lot of veterans come out and they think they've got to keep up the same breakneck speed that they may have had in a unit or in the army, or that they need to be rushing to things, but you don't. One of the wonderful things I've discovered in the civilian world of business is it's a bit more slow paced, and I'm really enjoying that. Once I got over myself and got out of my own way, I think that's the best bit of advice I would give to a young entrepreneur coming out of the military. There's lots to do, but make sure you're kind of taking time to stop and pause and think deeply about what you are doing. A tactical pause.
Mate, that's the final word. Well, I can think of no better way to wrap than leave it there. So, mate, I really appreciate that. Fourth pillar, if you're going to get it, take your time with it. To be honest, I've gone halfway through it and I've had to start again because I want to go back and take notes. It's not a book for me that I'm just reading like a novel. It's something that I'll read a few chapters or read even a few paragraphs and I'll be like, just put it down now, just walk out and just try and think about some of these points here. So I'm loving it, mate. And like I said, look, I just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for, everything that you've done over your service and transitioning into this, mate. And mate, I got no more to say. Thanks. That was tops.
Thanks very much, Pete. Thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Brilliant. All right, let's wrap it there. One of the things Harry just mentioned was not doing it by yourself. And if you've ever been in the military or a spouse and partner of either, like serving member, and you're interested in business or you're doing business, well, the veteran business community is here so that you don't have to be by yourself. There's people that are great business owners. There are people that are just starting, but what you'll find within the veteran business community is a place where you can learn and share. So appreciate you all. Take care. My name's Pete Liston. Out. That's it, mate. Done. Beautiful, mate. I'm going to love you and run, Pete. I really appreciate it, mate. Thank you. And thanks for all you're doing to help the veterans as well, mate. It's no small matter, and keep it up.